Good afternoon, Europe. Bom dia, Brazil, and welcome everyone to this Amazon Initiative Business Encounter. I am Kasper Kopp, Head of Sourcing and Compliance in Keflico. First of all, I wish to express a special welcome to our speakers, Kim Carstensen from FSC International, Mark van Benthem from Probos, Marcus Lentini from IMAFLORA, Leônidas Dahás from CONFLORESTA, Eduardo Leao from AIMEX, Camila Lima from the Brazilian Development Bank, and Daniella Vilela from FSC Brazil. We are grateful to have such a strong board of speakers representing immense knowledge on the exact topic of today. Also, a warm welcome to the signatories of the Amazon Initiative letter to Brazil, to new companies on board, and to our colleagues joining from the US. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be translated into Portuguese. We thank FSC International for its support and for hosting the platform. I will just briefly outline the background and perspectives of today's webinar. Deforestation in the Amazon just hit a 15-year high, a brutal figure of 1.3 million hectares lost in 12 months. This is a 22% increase to the year before, according to INP. Logwood production, on the other hand, reduced from 28 million cubic meters to 9 million cubic meters from the same area, according to the IMAFLORA report we used as background data for our letter to Brazil. I believe most importers can agree that demand for timber of responsible origin has never been better and will continue to grow. Sourcing it, on the other hand, is increasingly difficult. I think most of us can also agree that the best way to protect the rainforest is proper legislation, sustainable forest management, and in the end, responsible forest products. An Amazon initiative was therefore created for European importers to send a clear message that we are interested in timber of good and sustainable origin and non-destructive logging methods, forest management practices which sustain long-term forest production, and FSC-certified timber, including lesser-known timber species. With this statement, we hope to be able to initiate or resume processes that leads to an increased area of state and federal concessions and of the FSC-certified area in Brazil. This business encounter is a natural next step. Hopefully, this webinar will bring new perspectives and ideas to the table. In 2006, the Brazilian Forest Service started an ambitious program to establish forest concession so as to provide a legal framework for long-term sustainable timber production in the Amazonian. Forest concessions in the Brazilian Amazon have proven to be a very effective way to long-term protection of the forest, but currently cover only 1.6 million hectares. The potential, however, is 38 million hectares, according to IMAFLORA, and if indigenous lands can be included, probably much larger. FSC certification is a natural part of this process. Firstly, because the forest management standard applied to the state and federal concessions is very close to the one of FSC, making them easy to certify. Secondly, because forest management certification is part of the mandatory requirements for concession holders within a few years after obtaining a forest concession. The downside is that the process of creating the state and federal concessions have been too slow. This has also affected the lack of growth of the FSC-certified area in natural forests in Brazil. Earlier this year, IMAFLORA estimated that just 2.6 million hectares of forest in the Amazon is FSC-certified. Another critical factor is that 80 to 90% of the timber production in Brazil is being consumed on the domestic market. To achieve our objective, we must somehow urge Brazil to demand the same responsible origin of Brazilian timber as we do. Difficult, but not impossible. And here, FSC Brazil is surely a key player. Now, just a short remark on the elephant in the room today, and here I am referring to the critical situation regarding additional export authorization on timber, causing great harm to exporters in Pará as well as importers. To the extent this is relevant today, I think we should look at it in a future perspective and not bury ourselves in it, regardless of its current vast impact. The overall situation of today's topic is critical. The history is discouraging. The future seems, if not gloomy, then indeed challenging. So what is needed? Funding, awareness, collaboration, political pressure? Let us listen to our board of speakers and find out today how we can move forward. And please feel free to contribute. Christian Jørgensen from FSC Denmark is our moderator and will now present the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasper, and I hope I go through loud and clear at all. I'm Christian Jørgensen. I'm sitting as project manager in FSC Denmark, doing a lot of market development on tropical timber. In this, I work closely together with my colleagues in FSC International, such as Luca Costa, who is also with us today, just to make a brief mention. The agenda today, I will just get to that. Yeah, this event has benefited from the Foundation Prince Albert II of Monaco, and we are grateful for the contribution to various FSC projects in promoting sustainable tropical timber and also being able to do things like this. For the call today or the webinar today, I will just encourage you all to use the chat and see if you can get that up starting. Maybe we will not go through all questions today. There will be a questionnaire afterwards, but we are many people and limited on time. So do use the chat as a supplementive for discussions or just for new alliances. In this event will also be recorded. We will publish it with the subtitles in Portuguese later on. That will be available for people who may not be fluently in English. So that's also what you need to know. The program for today is like this. Kasper mentioned the speakers with a thank you. Also from me, a big thank you for all your contributions. It will be a format of 7 minutes, so 7 small inputs, 7 minutes each. We will try to keep the time. If the minutes are not gone, we might supplement it with questions. So that's also a possibility. After the first hour, we will go to a short, relatively short question and answers session, where we will focus. I assume that the speakers' input will be about challenges and opportunities, maybe new partnerships and the roles of organizations in this, and what is the steps forward. So we will get to that very soon. Yeah, that will be the questionnaire. That will be open for everybody to contribute. So be ready with your questions. And as said, do also use the chat. Maybe you can catch the speakers or others for questions in there. Yeah, and we've been through the letter. Kasper shortly mentioned the reason for this webinar. This is an open letter, and the main objectives of this, of course, been sustainable forestry and the sustainable sourcing of tropical timber products for the European market and what is needed for now and in the future. And when asking of favors in contributing with sustainable timbers, the big question is also how can the European market contribute to this? So you don't stand alone in Brazil with this challenge. Today's theme is how can European importers stimulate more concessions and certified forest areas in Brazil? And that is what we will be talking about today. On this, we have the first, and 1 second. We will give the word to Kim Carstensen, who is the General Secretary of FSC International, or FSC. We will just ask you kindly to present FSC and how you see FSC can contribute to the promotion of sustainable forest products from the tropical areas, and in this case, specific Brazil. Kim, I will give the word to you.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you also, Kasper, for the introduction. I will now share my screen with a few small presentations, and I hope they show in the right way. I was very happy to receive the invitation to this very welcome event, because working for additional certification of tropical natural forest in the Amazon, but of course also in the Congo Basin, also in the Southeast Asia, is extremely important. I'm showing you here, the first slide I showed was the front page of our global strategy. Second slide here is the big objective of the strategy, which is for the period from this year on to 2026. And the big ambition is to demonstrate value and benefits of a forest stewardship. In 300 million hectares globally, we have 230 million hectares now, so it's a 70 million hectares in addition. But What's important, I think, is to note that we are asking to see 50 million hectares of these 300 million being in tropical forests and areas managed by smallholders. This is about a doubling. At the moment, we have 11 million hectares tropical natural forest certified globally. So we would ask for about 25 million, and we have about 10, 11 million hectares certified by smallholders. Not all of that in the tropics, of course. A number of that is in temperate areas and other areas, of course, but also a doubling of that. That doubling is not going to come easily, because over the past 10 years, what we have seen is more or less a stagnation of certification. We've seen some years when numbers went up in Indonesia, other years when numbers went up in parts of the Congo Basin, but then they fluctuated more or less around the same area. So I would say absolutely not something that is just on a trajectory to reach a doubling in 5 years. So something new absolutely needs to happen in this area. And that's one of the reasons why we really welcome this initiative by European importers to come together and say, look, we will actually buy more wood if we can get it. And I think that is a very important signal. When we think about how we can achieve our 2026 objective, we have developed 3 sub-strategies. One of them is about co-creating and implementing forest solutions. That's very much about finding ways in which we can deliver the main product that we have, which is the standards that we have developed, deliver them in a way that is more amenable to forest certification in tropical forest and for smallholders. Streamlining the normative framework is one element of this. I would say resolving the challenges we have with the rules around intact forest landscapes. I think that's another elephant in the room in this discussion, is another element of that, and something that we really need to get right by the time of our next General Assembly, which will happen in a year's time from now. So that's one big element. Second big element is transforming markets. So that is very much what we're talking about here, which is about creating the market demand and market access for the products. And we're very interested in working with importers, but as you said, Kasper, also to work with the Brazilian market and work with FSC Brazil to actually make sure that we could do something much stronger in the domestic market in Brazil, because it is, without that, we're not going to change the way that Brazil tropical forests are being managed. And then the third element is about catalyzing change, which is very much about moving ourselves out of our current comfort zone, working in partnerships with others, working with market players, working with governments, be they federal, may not be so easy in Brazil at the moment, or be they state governments, working with others who can actually help create the incentives that are needed for a certification for responsible forest management in terms of investors and others. Also combining the work that we do for timber certification with other dimensions that will be very important for managers of tropical forests, such as climate financing in the future, hopefully also biodiversity financing, etc. So that is the overall strategy. Find solutions that actually work, recognizing that not everything we have at the moment actually works, and we need to work on that. Working with market actors to transform the markets, and getting ourselves out of our current comfort zone, working with governments, working with investors, working with also market actors in that dimension. At the moment, we see some very significant barriers. It costs too much. We have some skills gaps for smallholders. There's a lack of market access, and there is a lack of strong demand, and this whole issue of a bad reputation of tropical timber, which is a real issue. And we have a number of approaches. We can share this presentation afterwards if you want to look at it in more detail, but these are some of the things that we want to work on. Very importantly, independent research findings, working on finding actually ways to demonstrate that certification plays a role, makes a difference socially and environmentally, is hugely important. And this is about delivering benefits in terms of protecting ecosystems and biodiversity, ensure protection of indigenous peoples' rights, One thing we have done recently is to establish an FSC Indigenous Foundation, which is based in Panama, led by a Brazilian indigenous person, in fact, Francisco Souza, and we will be very keen to work in the context of the Indigenous Foundation to make it easier and better for indigenous peoples to engage in this. This may not be for timber production, maybe for other types of production, but nonetheless important for the future management of these forests. And then to demonstrate impact. There's an old Center for International Forestry Research, this is from the Congo Basin, demonstrating that FSC certification makes a difference on any social issue you can look at. And we also, on our website and other places, have a lot of independent research findings showing the environmental benefits of what we're doing, what certification means. And this is work that we will be continuing and strengthening in the coming years, because we believe this demonstration of impact is going to be crucially important. So thank you. This is a very welcome initiative, something that we really want to continue working on, and I will end here and pass the floor over back to Christian, I think. So thanks for the invitation and the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kim. Yeah, we will see if there is follow-ups after the last speakers for you, Kim. And the letter talks about the European demand, what is the requirements, and who to ask more about the European market than Mark from Probos. He will now let us in on the market analysis of the European market. Mark, I hope you can give us a little introduction to what you know.
I will. Thank you for your kind words, Christian. And I'm not sure who is now in control. Is that you, Luca?
It's me. It's
okay,
me.
Thanks very much. Good morning and good afternoon to you all. Thank you for inviting me for this event. Indeed, as Kim just mentioned, and also in the framework of the recent COP26 outcomes and the European Commission's announcement on this draft FERP regulation, it stresses the importance to grow the area under sustainable forest management. And also here in the Netherlands last week, Brazil was quite dominant in the press, this time related to soya and the related deforestation, mainly in the Cerrado area. But anyway, you asked me for a sprint, Christian. Let me get to the point. My contribution is about, indeed, trends in Europe regarding verified sustainable tropical timber. Next, please. You have the same problem as I did.
No. Yeah, no. You see it now.
Thanks, Luca. Yeah, my name is Mark van Benthem. I'm director of Probos. Probos translates to Pro Forest in English. We are an expertise center, not for profit, and our mission is to contribute to sustainable forest management. And in doing so, we put the interest of forest central. Next, please. We view certification as a good tool, as you can also see here from the satellite images of the precious woods concessions in Amazon, and the increasing deforestation on your right-hand side, and those are not touched within the concession areas. But we need more tools, and we need more area under certified sustainable forest management to also grow our impact on forests. Next, please. This slide I put in to put the data a bit into perspective. We've seen, after the financial crisis for over a decade ago, we've seen quite a dip in imports by the EU of tropical timber products. But ever since 2009, 2010, it has remained fairly stable for both primary and secondary timber products. Though COVID last year was a special year, and we've seen a severe dip in that year, but we also see now data of 2021 that demand is picking up, and we will get to at least pre-COVID levels pretty soon. Next one, please. Yeah, what is the current state of affairs regarding, for instance, this 2020 data? On request of IDH, the Sustainable Trade Initiative, we yearly assess the market for verified sustainable tropical timber. And this week we will publish our latest report. This is the third in a series. Next, please. And it is about the primary and secondary tropical timber products, excluding or trying to exclude those from plantations, and also excluding a certified plantation area in the tropics. And it looks into products which are likely contain fiber from natural tropical forests. And we then assess the share which is likely to be exposed to certification. Next, please. If we look into which countries are the main importers, we see that Belgium, France, and Netherlands are the largest. Within Europe, you also know their ports most likely. This is about imports, not about consumption. And the main product group still is sawn wood, though moldings, which includes decking, are of great importance as well. Next one, please. Of course, we can look into where we source from. In this case, you see where we source which product groups from which continent of the 3 tropical regions. Next, but we can also look, and those figures are also published in this report in more detail of the various countries, at least the main countries. And here that Brazil ranks twice as second for primary timber products after Cameroon and for secondary timber products after Indonesia. And here you also see the importance of moldings as an export product. Next one, please. If you're ranked twice second, you may still end up being the first if we look into overall figures, and that's what's happening to Brazil. Just over Cameroon, it is the largest country of origin of direct European imports of tropical timber products with 21%. And next, please. And if how much we import from where and the area of natural forest FSC, PFC certified in those areas, you can also assess the share of exports being exposed to certification. And we've done that now for a few years. And what we've seen, if we look into those data, that we assess that about 31 to 36% of European imports are FSC or PFC certified. This has slightly increased compared to last year, but that has to do with an increased forest area being certified, but also because the amount imported was less than last year, than in 2019. Next, please. And although Brazil ranks first with regards to the main country of origin for those tropical timber products, it only ranks 6th if you look into countries with a larger share of verified sustainable tropical timber products. We assess that about 6% of the certified material entering Europe has Brazil as country of origin. So there's quite a gap between this 21% and then the 6% here. We will either, let's say this week, perhaps tomorrow, publish the full report where you can also look into more details of this. Next one. But Christian also asked me, besides, let's say, setting the scene with regards to data, also describe some of the developments. And I don't want to go into detail to all of them, but I would like to go a bit more into detail about the growing demand for timber as the bio-based material, what we see. Next, please. As we say here in the Netherlands, and the Dutch timber sector really embraces this, welcome in the new wooden era, it says. Next one, wooden century. And indeed, all PR and communications of the timber sector are focused on environmental aspects. It's about bio-based, it's about the circular economy, it's about zero carbon, etc. And LCAs, life cycle analysis, but also EPDs, environmental product declarations, are of great importance. And we see timber scoring really well, but only if it's sourced from a responsible managed forest. If not, you lose all your environmental credentials and you lose out to other materials. Next, please. There's a lot of LCAs, EPDs being conducted currently, also, for instance, for tropical timber. Next, please. And that's also one of the reasons why the sector really embraces verified sustainable timber products. These are the figures we collect from the members, the traders of the Netherlands Timber Trade Association as of 2008 already. And by now, 94% of all the timber they trade is FSC or PFC certified. And if we look into tropical timber products, it's close to 70% at this moment. Next one. And that is also, the sector has to source responsibly to support these outcomes of the LCAs and to support positive messaging. We need to source sustainably or responsibly to increase trust in timber, to increase transparency within the sector, to increase the credibility of our sector. And I think that's also of great importance to tropical timber specifically. It's about also storytelling. We've developed last year a timber market survey called TEMIS. Next one, please. Which is currently being used by the French Timber Trade Federation, Le Commerce du Bois, and also the Belgium Timber Trade Federation. And there are more federations interested in joining this platform. And this is not about data collecting, but it's about setting targets with them with regards to responsible sourcing, to monitor progress and to target interventions where needed. Next one, please.
Mark,
yes,
we are time is due. A quick
these are the last 2 slides, I think, 1 slide perhaps even. Because indeed, as Europe, although we are not the main destination currently for tropical timber, if Europe would have sourced 100% responsible timber in 2020, it would have at least impacted 16 million tropical hectares of tropical rainforests. We can still play a significant role, and I really call upon the sector to play that role and to put words into action. So therefore, I really welcome also this initiative by you, Christian and Kasper, and those who signed up to this letter. Next, I think that is my last slide, Christian. Thank you, because indeed, this is what we are after. The forest should remain the forest.
Thank you so much, Mark. And from knowledge about the European market, we will go to more knowledge about the forest sector in Brazil. I would love to welcome Marco Lentini from IMAFLORA, who will tell us a bit more about the status of the Brazilian forest sector. The word is yours, and I hope you can share your screen.
Thanks, Christian, and I'd like to thank you for the invitation today. Let me see, I hope you can see my screen by this point.
It works.
Oh, good. It's working. So again, thank you very much for the invitation. We are very excited about the forestry agenda in Brazil. I guess we have now this big challenge of trying to achieve 25 to 30 million hectares of responsible forestry in the next 10 to 15 years. That's a huge challenge. I'll talk a little bit about why, but we're very excited about that. I'm Marco. I'm a Senior Forest Project Coordinator at IMAFLORA. I'll try to run through the slides to be efficient, but I guess we are happy to also share these slides after the presentation. So maybe I'll not run through all contents on that, but focus on the main messages. So let's see. So our first main message is that, again, we are living a critical moment in the Amazon. I think that Kasper gave an excellent context. So we are worried about uncontrolled deforestation, illegal mining. There's a lot of threats that have been growing in the Amazon in a very fast way. So more than ever, we need responsible forestry. And I'm talking about responsible forestry here. It's important to take into account that I'm considering forest enterprises that have been passing by independent verification. What we have been seeing and is highlighted in the maps is this migration of the logging frontier. So 20 years ago, the logging frontier was alongside the Arc of Fire and deforestation, and now it's slowly moving to the core of the Amazon. It means that we need to stop the frontier now. If we don't do that in 20 years, we'll be talking about a logging frontier, I don't know, in the north of Amazonas, in Colombia, and whatever. And the best tool that we have at hand now is really chub-scale forest management. Today, we estimate that less than 10% of the demand comes from responsible forestry. And now I'm referring here to the sum of the concessions and certification. There is no guarantee of legality outside these areas. We have official control systems, yes, the DOF, etc. I guess you guys know a lot about that. But these systems are very fragile. They offer flaws that can lead to fraud. So it's a gray zone in relation to legality, most of this documentation. My second main message is that Brazilians are the main buyers of Amazon wood. So 10% of the total production goes to the external markets, mainly Europe and United States. And one important thing is that the consumption within the Amazon, so the medium class in the big cities of the Amazon, is growing in the last years. So when we are talking about responsible consumption practices, it's clear to us that a lot of the solution will be to convince people in the north and northeastern Brazil, the Amazonians, to ask for responsible sourcing, which is also a big challenge, right? But we are very aware of the need to do that in the next decade. My third main message today is that, for the reasons that have been stressed, is that forest concessions and certified enterprises are what we can call as responsible forestry. They offer lower legality risks. The main reason for that is because they are independently verified. Again, we can trust that only the official control systems are able to lead to legality. And here's a graph on, we have now like since 2.5 million hectares under concessions and certification. That's pretty much 10% of the total demand from wood. The federal government has this huge plan of expanding concessions, called it PA-OFF. So if fully implemented, we would have more 20% of the demand being addressed by concessions. And again, the goal that we have is to achieve 25 million hectares, at least in the next 15 years, to cover the entire demand from the Amazon. Is a huge challenge. I would like to stress that. Because imagine that in 15 years, we achieved 1.6 million hectares of concessions, and now we are talking about having to implement concessions in at least 1.5 million hectares per year. So it's a huge challenge. So a lot of the, in a civil society perspective, I guess the main question is how we can help on that. How we can address the execution points, how we can find investments, how we will have enough people trained to do that. We are talking about 30,000 workers and engineers trained to do forest management to achieve 25 million hectares. We don't have a fraction of that. So that's this huge concern about having really the structure and the enabling conditions actually to achieve this task. And the fourth, sorry, is a strong statement. The way that FSC forest certification is developing in the Amazon is concerning. And in our opinion, the FSC might become irrelevant in terms of the responsible forestry agenda for the Amazon. There's at least 3 reasons for that. One, again, the market for Amazon wood is pretty much internal, not external. So there's a very limited scope in terms of the scale when we talk about UTR, LACI, and international buyers' commitments in terms of changing the trajectory of forest production areas in the Amazon. The second, again, is that illegal logging is sophisticated, so most due diligence process cannot detect that without independent verification. And the third and more important that I would like to highlight is the policies, the priorities that FSC have. Maybe the main example today is the Motion 65. So the way the system is developing is unfolding is in a way that there is this big concern about protecting IFLs, intact forest landscapes within certified enterprises. We believe that to be a risk. If this motion is fully implemented, we have no doubt that almost all the certified enterprises in the Amazon will withdraw FSC certification. When we are talking about responsible forestry, it's very important to think about a way again to upscale concessions, but we have to consider a scenario where FSC will not be a driving force in terms of stimulating the adoption of good practice. So I try to be very synthetic, sorry for that. I always get pressure when I have very little time, but I would be excited about discussing that further, send you guys a presentation, and also responding questions by email and things like that. So again, thank you very much, Chris and Kasper, for the great opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Marco. And you at least opened the table for a good discussion later on. Yeah. Thank you. Now we've seen the overview of the Brazilian forest sector, but let's go into deep depth with that. And who else? Leônidas, Dahás from CONFLORESTA, who to say about the challenges and obstacles in making forest concessions and certification. I hope you have an open mic.
Okay. So I'm the president from CONFLORESTA, an association with 12 of the 15 companies that have concessions until today. Just showing a little bit of the name of the companies. 3 are not associated yet. Maybe in the future we can have 100% of the concessions. Today we have almost 1.8 million hectares of contract signed, and 1.2 was in execution this year. So we have a little bit of almost 2/3 operating, 1/3 is not operating yet. Just like to begin every presentation, because sometimes people don't understand the work we have to have a management plan in Brazil. So Every single dot in this picture is a tree that we measured 1 year before the extraction. We have an authorization to cut between 3 to 6 trees per hectare. So you can see it's very little. We protect the water. So you can see the red dots that we cannot cut close to water. So every management in Brazil, but especially in concession, we also protect the water from the Amazon. To cut the tree, we have also cutting techniques to reduce the impact on the forest. So that's a thing that I think people don't see that. Every time you see a deforestation, you link that to the woods. So that's, for me, is the main concern all of us have. Need to correct that, because the consumer and almost, I think, more than 90% of the person that I know always make a link. When I present myself as a woodworker, they always say, so you are cutting and deforestation the Amazon. So I think that happens all over the world with our customers too. Every time I talk to them, they have the same problem. So this is the thing that we need to show that for everyone, the kind of work and how many trees we don't cut. So also when we cut the tree, we need to make a chain of custody. The Brazilian Forest Service also have this chain of custody system. They make drone measurement, monitoring, and every 3 years, a third party comes to our forest to make also an audit. And also on a lot of concessionaires have FSC certification or different kind of certification. That's a picture from that I take it 2 years ago. And that's just after we stop extracting. So it's not no impact. Of course, we cannot lie about that. So we have an impact on the forest. But you can see the thing that we need to focus here is that my company or in the other concessions are responsible to keep the other trees there alive and protecting the area. So that's the main reason for me to the concessions to still happen. And of course to the companies, especially in Europe, that's the main focus on this day, to keep buying from concessions. So this is a picture I taken the same day. One of the sides of the picture, was extracted 3 years ago, 3 years before the picture, and one we never touched. So it's difficult for me. I only knew because I have the GPS, so I know which side we have extracted. So we see basically there is no difference. Of course, in the soil, you can see it. If you're on the ground, you can see the place that we cut, but the rest of the forest is still there. So that's an image I think we need to show more to the world, to everybody know that we are protecting them. Another map that I like to show is the map of the deforestation around a concession. So also the concession, since we have someone to blame if there is a deforestation on the area. So this person, in that case, my company, needs to protect the area. So no kind of deforestation happens. Of course, there is a lot of reasons for deforestation in Brazil, but for me, one of the main reasons is that you don't have a responsible person for that forest. So just a public forest, and there is no one to take care of that. So when you have a concession or all kind of difference, like in indigenous areas, also since they have people living there, there is more person to protect the forest. So of course, in the forest, I think all the concessions work great, has no problems. Of course, there is a little, but there is no difficulty to extract. The problem is later, when you need to export it, export the wood, export the products, and we don't have a reliable and good system from the government to make a good chain of custody that the customers can rely on. So of course, we still demand on our due diligence and your due diligence to make sure that there is no mixing with wood from illegal or other areas that are not that well controlled. So the first problem for me, I already told you that separating the image of the deforestation from the management plan. And we have the lack of integration between the systems and lack of transparency. So one of the things that we need to look after that, we are asking for the Brazilian government, not only the federal, but also the state government, to give more transparency for every single process. because today we have the transparency basically more on the concession areas. So you can know every cubic meter that goes out of the concession, but the rest, the private areas, we don't know. So we need to know everyone, not just the Brazilian, but the external market also. So in next year, there is a big expectation to the new government system, the DOF, Rastreabilidade, and Pau Brasil. So we are hoping that when it's working, will be working, we can have a easiest way to show you that the wood is coming from a very well management plan. And also we have some problems with the financing. It's very difficult. Sometimes I ask for money for a bank, even a federal bank, and they have to sign. They give me a paper to sign to say that I only have wood from planted areas. So even the federal banks doesn't give financing to wood companies that work in the Amazon. So that's also a big problem for us because we don't have that kind of incentive to work with wood. So for me, that's thank you all for the opportunity. If you have any questions later.
Great. And you hit 7 minutes precise. So
really?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, and a lot of good input as well. We will keep that for the Q&A. After the forest, we will have the sawmill sector and exporting organizations, and we're so happy to be represented by Eduardo Leao from AIMEX, who can give us perspective from this part of the supply chain as well. Happy to have you here, Eduardo, and I hope also your mic goes through.
Okay, are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear. So, and your presentation is up. So 7 minutes from now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invite for this conference. And actually, Leônidas already told almost 100% that I'm pursuing to say that our agendas are very similar, IMAX and CONFLORESTA. Actually, almost everybody that comes from CONFLORESTA there is a part from IMAX. We are now 26 members and almost 10 from CONFLORESTA are inside IMAX. I'm the president for IMAX. Actually, I don't know so much from the timber sector. I come from the PR and from mining sectors and the agro, so I'm quite new at IMAX, and I'm trying to focus on procedures and PR and relationship and governance and transparency. This is the main goal that we have to pursue. I think that almost everybody in this conference knows how this goes in state of Pará. So this is the traceability that comes from the forest. Just already told, we have the LTAPs. So we have the forestal guy from or DOFs, state level or federal level. We have two different procedures, but very similar. So we make the process. So we have another GFs and then to exportation. This is a very rude fluxogram, but when we go to wood exportation, you have these procedures, and on federal level, you have to go to RRS that we call the Receita Federal in Brazil. We have the single export document, the due, the log inventory. In the state level for the finance, you have the electronic invoice, forest guide, and the bill of landing. And IBAMA, we have this normative instruction number 15 that was cut 3 years ago. And in May this year, we have a member from the Supreme Court coming back to life. And this is the mess that we are passing through these days. So we have this this export authorization that this normative instruction says that 100% of the exportation has to be this. And the trouble that we are having today is that we are in the state of Pará in the north. We have Vila do Conde. So actually almost 100% from our timber comes from Vila do Conde, but nowadays we already has some timber from the state of Pará coming from Paranaguá or come from Itapuã in the south of Brazil. Why? In Vila do Conde, only 200 containers per month are getting through the authorization. And in the other way, in the south of Brazil, Paranaguá or Itapuá, they are making 1,000 to 800 containers per month. So we have this to add this logistical customs, almost $700 per container, but is very fast. Their exportation are being through the south of Brazil. The big gap that we have here, almost every technician from the IBAMA has to fiscalize 100% of the containers. So this is very troubling for us, and it's taking too long. We have still containers that were planned to go out in May, and they are still beside the Vila do Conde waiting for the fiscalization. The big mess that we are getting through, this is how some due diligence are made, just like the FSC procedure. We have to make this true. In the woods, this is quite, how can I say, easy to do. Not so easy, but it's quite easy. The big mess that we are pressing through and that IBAMA doesn't understand, this is the fragile or the gap that Leônidas already told it, is that when you go to the sawmill, has a lot of, not all the sawmills has one only supply chain like Ebata from Leônidas. Leônidas has the forest, has the concession, and go to Ebata sawmill. This is quite easy because not so can I say, it's quite easy because you only have one supply chain. We have 100% that from the chain of custody that comes from the concession is on the sawmill. But we have a few traders or a few companies that they have 4, 5, 7, 10 forests that goes to the sawmill and goes to the factory. So we have to make a kind of blockchain or a better solution from the chain of custody, because this is where the messy part is. IBAMA or the society doesn't believe in everything that comes from our state companies or state institution. One of the things that I'm hearing about, and I talk to Kasper a lot, environmental license from IBAMA or for SEMAS doesn't have the same status that FSC certification. And we have to get more of that because the importers, your companies, your countries, they have to believe that 100% that we are doing here in the sustainable forest management are true. We have a problem in the US, I don't know if you heard about, Fish and Wildlife doesn't believe that we have EP in the Amazon. So how can we prove that to them, that EP that we are in our inventory, and Embrapa, the federal company, is making a study for us to show how the EP is all over the Amazon, not in the state of Pará, not only in the state of Pará, but in the Amazonas and in Mato Grosso. So we have to get similar to a blockchain. The Pau Brasil program is trying to get something like that. I don't know, Leônidas already told you. And in the 15 days is going to be launched by IBAMA. And this is a little of connection or integration with a lot of systems. Maybe this is going to be a little easier for us to show how this chain of custody is more traceable. One of the things that to end my agenda, one of the things that is very important for us, and I don't know how the FSC can help us or the members can help us, because we have nowadays a review from the normative 15 that created the export authorization. IMAFLORA, Forum, IMAFLORA, everybody's gonna make contribution. So how we can make this more automated, we can make this faster, because the big mess that our society doesn't know that the same procedure for the log or for timber in the national market is almost the same for international markets. Only the export authorization that is blocking us to have the full exploitation from our law. I'm sorry, but my English is a little rusty. I'm happy to, sorry about that, but the main goal is like this. If you have help from your countries and trying to make the ambassadors, and I'm trying to get that from the ambassador from Belgium, from France, from Denmark, to try to pressure the Brazilian government to get this agenda, just like Leônidas told you, just like Marco told you. We have to get this through because our sector won't survive for so much more time if we don't get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you so much. And the big question is how FSC can contribute. We will take that in the later question session. Thank you so much. Next speaker is, of course, the Brazilian Development Bank. It's Camila Lima, who will talk to us a bit about the role of the BNDES, as we also know them as. Camila, I hope you go through. Do we have a co-host role? I'm just asking our service guys about this. A co-host, so Camila can share her presentation as well. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. My name is Camila. I work here in BNDES in the Project Development Department. I have also here is from BNDES, and I think you talked also to Ludmila. We are the team that is responsible here in BNDES for structuring the project, the Forest Concessions project. We are working together with the Brazilian Forest Service for that, and also with many partners. We have a cooperation agreement with SEMEA. We talk a lot with IMAFLORA, and it's very important to us, this type of dialogue. I'm very glad to be here to present a little bit of our vision, what we are developing, and also to hear from you inputs for this development. Great. So just a second. Yeah. So I'll just start quickly with a brief presentation of what BNDES does in talking about project development. So we aim at acting in all the stages of project development. The team that is here is focused in the south side in having the project development structured and ready to offer to the market. And also we have teams in BNDES that work with the financing. We are very concerned that the projects that are made are well received by the market, and also that they have tools for financing them. In the stages of project development, we have all the origination process that we identify together with the public entities, which projects are represent a potential for having private partnerships with, and like concessions and PPPs. And then we have the project preparation, that is like the most important part of the project. We have all the studies that are done here. And this is the same, it's very similar to all the sectors that we act. And usually we also contract some consultants, some specialists that can support us, since I'm not a specialist in forest. So there are some consultants that are very aware of that and help us in this project preparation process. And then we have the promotion. So we have first an important stage, that is the public consultation, that we show the project to the society and then can ask about it and show concerns and everything. And also we have the roadshow with investors. We think that it's very important to act in all these stages to have success. And also we have this promotion phase here, but we are very worried about talking with the stakeholders throughout all the process to get something that is attractive to the market. So then I'll talk a bit more specifically about the forest concessions. But first, I'll just show what BNDES has today in its portfolio in what we call the project factory. So it's this division that is dedicated in supporting the public entities to development of projects, of PPP's projects, okay? And here we have a very big mandate. And also we can see here that we have now 44 environmental projects in our portfolio. It's something that we have been dedicating ourselves more and more, because we really think it's an important tool for the economical, social, and environmental development. So it's something that we have started. We already acted on that by financing projects, but now in this structuring project division, we are very also concerned in generating good projects. So that's our goal in the end. Talking about the forest concessions, I think it's important to highlight that BNDES celebrated this contract with the Brazilian Forest Service for public forests. So we are responsible here in partnership with them to develop the forest concessions for these 8 forests. And we divide in 2 blocks because they have some different aspects. 5 in Amazon that are very large areas that we are aiming to do the sustainable forest management. And in the south, we have smaller areas in comparison with the Amazon. And our main goal is to restore the biome there. So we want to substitute the exotic species by native species. And I think an important thing to highlight here is that BNDES believes that we can contribute in this agenda by catalyzing the forest concessions development. Nowadays, we have 1 hectare that has concessions, and here in our portfolio, we have more. We can like triple it because we have more 2.2 million hectares that we are developing. So that's very important to us, and we think also we can aggregate with our vision from our experience from other sectors. So that's why we did this partnership with the Brazilian Forest Service. We think we can import best practice from other sectors and make projects that are viable during all the period that they are offered to the market. And I can talk more about this best practice later, since we don't have much time. But I just want to encourage all of you to talk to us and give your inputs. That's very important to develop this agenda. And as I said, we are talking here about projects that are viable economically and also have a very important role in the accomplishment of sustainable development objectives. So we think really that the forest concessions are a very important tool for forest conservation and for generate jobs in the region, generate economical development. And as I said, we really want to catalyze this agenda. So we are here engaged in designing scalable and economically attractive models. So that's what we have been doing like this whole year. And our aim is to launch these auctions, at most in the 3rd quarter of the next year. Okay.
Thank you, Camila.
Okay, the last one is just to let everybody knows about this platform. We have to announce our projects. So the BNDES Project Hub, and everybody can look at the internet. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hear an invitation to partnerships and to look into possible projects in developing this agenda. So thank you so much, Camila. We will bring this forward to the discussions as well. The last speaker today, now we've been around different stakeholders of the Brazilian forest sector. The last one we will present here is Daniella Vienna, who is Director of FSC Brazil locally. So that's also a contact point for you in Brazil. I will just give the word to Daniela for a brief introduction to the services of Brazil and how they in Brazil view this agenda. I hope you have a mic open, Daniela.
I hope too. Can you hear me, Christian?
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here. As Christian mentioned, my name is Daniella Vilela. I'm the Executive Director of FSC Brazil, which is the national representative of FSC in the country. First engineer, graduated in University of São Paulo, and have been working with FSC certification since 2011. And today's scenario of management of native forests in Brazil is what Marco already mentioned. We have almost 2 million hectares of native forests certified by FSC in the country, which is a really small number compared to the potential and actually what is needed to supply the demand of wood. We believe that this event is of great importance because it starts to talk and to show the importance of a subject that we have been incentivizing for a long time now, which is the relevance of demand in promoting changes on the ground. We really believe that demand have a powerful role into changing things on the ground, and having you discussing this, it's utmost importance. But we know that there are many challenges to be faced and overcome to improve forest management in Brazil and of course to end deforestation. And we know that one of the first steps to do it, to accomplish this, is to have the market demanding wood from responsible origin. So this is one of the main goals that we have as national office, so that this market starts publicly stating and actually defining procurement policies on this subject. So they don't just say it, the market just don't say it, but also to do it for real. But sure, we as country, we as origin of this wood needs also to make this happen, to have this wood to be supplied. So we need to provide controls to supply this responsible wood. And that's where I believe FSC comes into the game. We can be a great tool, one tool to be used to verify on the field how the management is done. So it was said already that third-party verification is very important to really know what is happening on the ground, what is happening on sawmills, what is happening to the forests. And also to assess how this wood is following its path until it arrives into those markets. But we alone as FSC cannot solve all the problems. As I said, we are a tool, but we need a good environment too. As mentioned, there is a difference between the demand from the domestic market and the international market. And we see that the domestic market, as Marco mentioned, is still very immature and don't really understand the difference between what is management, what is deforestation, and that there is a difference, of course, between these. And that legal and certified wood can and will be more expensive than illegal wood, because this is something natural. If you have to comply with such an amazing amount of rules, you will have to expend, you will have to use more money and more resources, then you will have to put that onto the wood price. If we want to have a more environmental friendly policy and use more materials such as wood that have a reduced footprint, we need to act as a country and have a serious company rewarded and paid a fair price for that. So this is really important. But we also need these enabling conditions to be taken care of, such as public laws implemented, governmental systems working, professional workers with good information, and also logistics improve and everything else. This is a major part of the demand, of course, but I truly believe that even though international market, it's not the biggest part of the pie, it plays a real role. The international, the importers can set the example, can set the path on how to do things right, and the domestic market can mirror that. So for the international market, what I believe it is important that we have this kind of discussions, that people start to understand what is really happening in the country, and that we increase awareness on what is needed, what is not possible. One thing, for instance, is to have people understand the importance of diversifying the wood species. So start requiring different species, not the same all the time, because this put a big pressure on the forest. And this is very important for the international market. And also to think on how to balance the demand for conservation and the demand for production. As mentioned, one of the elephants that we have on the road today is IFL. We cannot protect largest amount of area exclusively for conservation purpose, at the same time supply wood. That's simply not possible. So we have to find a balance between these two paths and these two roles of, and I truly believe that FSC can play a big role on finding this balance, this way on having conservation, but also production. And finally, my last message is how FSC Brazil can and will be supporting this line of work. So we are always trying to find opportunities to connect demand with producers. We are the first contact if you ever need something from FSC on the ground. We are also working and have working for a long time now into increasing awareness in the country about the importance of responsible origin for wood, and developing projects to support certification in forests. We also intend to increase our role into working in partnership with government and governmental agencies to really increase the potential that we have to increase the concessions and the certified areas, and to improve the agencies and to improve their roles into the management of the responsible management of forests. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you so much, Daniela, also for introduction to your role in this and your valid points on the market. Now we will go to just the reactions from the audience. You will see down in the bottom there is a little symbol called reactions. In there you can raise your hand if you want to ask. Maybe we should focus on questions to speakers. Now we will have the input. You can just think of your questions, and maybe we could just have a short reaction. I think much of it came back to the FSC system. I even heard that we were trying to be irrelevant in Brazil. So I don't know if Kim Carstensen, if you have a response to what you've heard from the previous.
I think what Marco was referring to was rules on intact forest landscapes that Daniela talked about also. And we've seen very consistently from stakeholders, not only in Brazil, also in Peru, other parts of the Amazon, also in the Congo Basin, that you could say the orthodoxy of our rules stemming from a motion called Motion 65 that was approved back in 2014, that will absolutely not work for concessions or responsible forest management in the Amazon or tropical natural forests. We're completely aware of that. The situation we have is that a motion approved by FSC's membership can only be changed by FSC's membership, so we need to have another membership discussion. In the lead up to next year's General Assembly, we have 4 motions proposed that all in different ways look for alternatives to the current way that Motion 65 and intact forest landscapes are being treated. I'm actually quite confident there will be a solution found. We have a project called Focus Forests that gathers the different sort of interest groups around that. It has motion proposers in that direction, also has supporters of Motion 65. And I think we're having constructive discussions. We will be very happy to engage with, we are engaging with FSC Brazil already, but we will be very happy to engage with other stakeholders in Brazil on finding constructive ways towards a solution. I don't think anybody anymore really thinks that Motion 65 as it was originally conceived does the trick for anybody, not even for the environmental interests that it was trying to protect. And I think there's a lot of discussion needing to be held. There was some very good dimensions in what was proposed by FSC Brazil in the standard for Brazil, which included new rules for reduced impact logging, which I think is a major part of the discussion. I think that in combination with looking at what is actually protected in the landscape, not only inside the forest management unit, I think those two dimensions, if looked at together, could provide the basis for a solution.
Great, thank you. Let's put IFL talks a bit on break. It is something that reoccurs. I noticed there is a little thing going on in there. We have Lisanne from Van Canastela who have asked a question that Marco would love to ask, but let's hear Lisanne first. Can you unmute yourself, or we will make sure you can speak, Lisanne?
Hi, yes.
Hello, Lisanne. There was a bit of a questions going on here, and yeah, could you let us in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, first of all, thank you for organizing. And we as Vandenberg Hartwood, we are happy to be part of this initiative. So thank you. Indeed, my question came when Marco was presenting the potential area. And my question is a bit like, what's the current function of these areas now, and how are they managed, or what is their, so to have a bit more idea of what we are talking about.
Yep.
Thank you.
And that was not Van Canastela, but Vandenberg. Sorry about that. And we will, Marco, could you answer that?
Yeah, very short. Yeah, we estimate to have something around almost 40 million hectares of forest nearby this new logging frontier with potential for management. So they are pretty much public lands now. So we are talking about national forests, state forests, even public forests without destination. Well, that's this trick in Brazil. I feel the public lands are not assigned yet by the government to a given use. For example, they were not designated for a park or for a national forest, whatever. So part of that also has a potential for concessions. The Brazilian Forest Service, by the way, will test that in next off, where they will try to bid 3 new areas that are public forests, but they are not national forests and things like that. And also it includes a few of the community territories that would be legal to harvest if we arrive in an agreement with these communities, so communities that dwell in these areas. So in summary, they are all public lands, and they are being lost in a very fast pace. So we are losing that to land grabbing, illegal mining, and deforestation of very fast. That's the reason why I guess that we are trying to bring this sense of urgency, because if it takes more than 20 years, so they will not be intact enough anymore to do forest management. So I guess I would like to stress that if civil society has a role in improving and upscaling forest management in the Amazon, we don't believe that we have more than 15 years to do so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. I'm looking for questions or people who raise their hands in the chat. Please do that. Then we will.
Christian, maybe just, I think he has to go as he put in the chat. So if we have questions for him, maybe we take it now quickly and then we let him go.
A quick finishing question for Kim, perhaps. While he is here, he is on his way out. We are also a bit over time. Sorry about that, but yeah, we have
Kasper. Yeah.
I have a question for Kim, and Kim, thank you very much for coming. In Brazil, you have a very good national risk assessment in place already, and you have a strong standard in the FSC controlled wood standard. What is your strategy on a stepwise approach, and maybe putting some market tools in play where we can use the FSC controlled wood more active in the market than we can if your strategy is to double the amount of hectares FSC certified? Maybe I was thinking the stepwise approach could be a way to put more FSC on the market and still bring more FSC in process in Brazil.
That's a very interesting question. I have to admit that we do not have a strategy for that, but we do have actually develop what we now call continuous improvement, which is a stepwise approach, as a way of managing or moving towards certification, enabling smallholders to get there. And as I mentioned, smallholders are also an area where we want to double. So I think it's a very interesting thought, whether in a country where we already have some tools like the Control Board National Risk Assessment, a functioning, well-functioning network, national network partner, etc., whether we could actually move in that direction. Thanks for the idea. Let's think about it.
We have a question from, or a comment from Camila Lima.
Yes, actually, I'll just say something based on maybe the first question you put in the screen when we started. How can we stimulate the forest concessions and everything? I think something I would like to mention is we think that attract new players can change the level of the market. We think that we have nowadays a few companies acting, and we think that for having this scale of the scale that we have, we need more companies working on these here in Brazil. And here we talk not only about operation, but also about demand. We think that a firm demand, a long-term contract would be something that would change a lot what we are talking about. We probably would be able, we would have a virtual circle, like we would be able to, we know that we have a firm demand, then we have people interested in bidding in the forest concessions, and we have people interested in financing that also, because we know that we have buyers that buy these certified or trustable timber. And so I think that for the audience, I would invite you to know more about the projects and also to talk to us about this interest in long-term contracts or the interest in operating here, and also to know more about the new models that are being modeling, and what do you think about it in general, I would say. Okay, that's it. I think
seems like
highlight those things.
Again, on partnerships, it seems like we have enough content for that, for a focus meeting on that, or a encounter in itself on how to engage more on project level to develop the sector. I have a question from Jacob Boye Larsen.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you for taking this initiative to setting up this meeting. It's been very interesting. I've seen that the majority of the participants here are companies I know that already make a great effort out of promoting sustainable timber, FSC in particular. But I would to direct a question to the FSC organization that might help the rest of us in promoting increasing the demand for third-party verification products. What stance or what measures may we expect from FSC organization in defending its members? In the past months, talking about the shipments out of North Brazil, which have been on hold due to the issue with the delay of the issuance of the export permits, many of the companies who have been facing most problems have actually been the ones with FSC concessions of themselves. They have been suffering most persecution, even more than the people, the exporters who do not work with FSC products. So I've been missing to see some actions, particularly in the medias, defending the members of FSC already. And I think it would motivate a lot of people if we could expect some more action from your side.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. I see Kim has left the call. He was also making a note on that. It is quite relevant. I don't know, Daniela from Brazil, is this something locally? Now we can talk about, comment on the European part. From Brazil side, do you have any comment for that?
Thanks, Christian. Thanks, Jacob, for for the comment. We do have a role to play into explaining, and this is what I mentioned in the end of my speech, that we plan to be more active into interacting with local and governmental agencies to better explain how FSC works, what are the commitments that companies that are certified are having, and what is the level of verification that certified companies have, because we do know that this information is still not very well understood and not very well internalized by these organizations. So we truly think that this is a role that we can play into better explaining and better answering, because there are FSC, it's not a simple system. It is very complex. We have a lot of rules, different rules that are not easy to grasp in the first place. So we think that we can strongly support into bringing information to these agencies and allowing them to have a better decisions, but informed decisions based on better information. Yes, thank you. This is something that we can definitely work more and better on.
We are, time is running. I have a few more questions. And then I think Kasper Kopp will close the day within 5 minutes. I hope you are all able to stick along for that. But I have a question or comment from Jacob. Sorry, I think the comment from Daniela covered the general approach. But I think also events like this and the general marketing activity of FSC is something that can be used, and alliance can be strengthened. So definitely.
Thank you very much for this organization. I'd like to congratulate you guys for this meeting. It was very important for us to develop this relationship with the international stakeholders and so on. So I just like to say here, I'm sorry I didn't present myself. My name is Olavo. I'm from a NGO called Instituto Semeia, and we work to support the development of the forests in Brazil, as well as the parks, natural parks in Brazil. I just want to make a call for all the international stakeholders that even though we are under development, this scenario of forest concessions, I think it's very important for the international community and all the stakeholders to help us to keep these initiatives alive, as well as with financial terms, with that. Something that Leonardo puts very well, that is a very difficult thing for the concessionaires to make it economical viable. So it's a very important thing to improve this agenda. You guys organized to make this the letter to the Brazilian Service Forest, and I think it's very important for you guys as well to create this positive agenda towards other organizations in Brazil, especially the financialists. So that's it. I think this agenda can be very, very meaningful for us if we keep this group and all those stakeholders in partnership. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Olava. This was another call for partnerships and dialogue and more actions on this. A brief comment or question here as we go to the 1 hour and 40 minutes, a bit more than expected, but or else we will close the day. And I'm sure this is not the last activity we do on this agenda, and we can go down of each problem and possibilities and possible partnerships at individual meetings. Just great to hear it all. I think my role as a moderator is ending, and I will leave the word for closing to Kasper Kopp.
Hey, thank you very much. How to sum up on this is a bit difficult. I see we are just scratching the surface of something very big and very interesting here. My paper is full of notes, and some of them are that there are huge challenges here. There's a huge potential, but it's clear that nobody can do this alone. Not the FSC, not the AIMEX, not CONFLORESTA, not the importers. So I think that one of the key things here is that we need to collaborate, and I will absolutely encourage that FSC and AIMEX and CONFLORESTA and the Brazilian Development Bank, CEMIA, etc., reach out to each other and start working together, because there's a lot that can be done, that's clear. And as I said, the potential is huge. It's just how do we get there? This is absolutely not the last you've heard from the Amazon initiative, I'm sure. We will dig into our notes and then try and come back to the importers with maybe a new statement we can come together on. I think that the point that was made here by Jacob Boy Larsen regarding what can FSC do for the operators is interesting, because it points out to a new role for FSC, where they are going to be probably playing a much more active role, defending their standards, defending the people that have invested in this and believed in this. So it'll be interesting to see the role for FSC and the strategy to increase the FSC certified area, etc., etc. It is interesting with regards to the current situation with the export authorizations. As an European importer, we sit here and we look at a chain of custody which has already been verified by an independent third party, paid for by the producers and by us, and it still needs a second and even a third verification again. Probably that is one concrete area where we could, as importers, raise our voice and say that this could be done in a different way, at least on timber that is already being verified by some kind of third party. All right, much more could be said, but I think this will be the closing remarks from me here. Thank you very much, everybody that attended, that took part, and to the speakers who put some very interesting things forward here. I hope we can do something again, maybe narrow it down, because this has been a big, huge thing, but very on top of the agenda, on top of mind. And finding a solution to this and to the stopping deforestation of the Amazon is absolutely one of the biggest challenges of our time. We must stay in the fight. I think that will be the words, unless somebody else have something they would add. And thank you for your participation, and stay tuned.
Thank you very much.